When people ask me, what's the real secret to speaking English fluently? I don't just say practice, or grammar, or vocabulary. I tell them something they don't usually expect. I say, it's confidence. And often they look at me with surprise. Like, what does confidence have to do with English? But if you've ever tried to speak a language you're still learning, you already know exactly what I mean. Think about a time when you wanted to say something in English, but the words just froze in your mouth. It wasn't because you didn't know the words. You probably did. You probably studied them before, maybe even practiced them in your head. But when the moment came, when real people were standing there, waiting for your response, suddenly everything felt harder. Your brain got nervous, your voice got shaky, and instead of speaking, you stayed quiet. That right there, that's confidence playing its tricks on you. See, the truth is, learning a language is never just about the language. It's about how you feel while using it. And if you feel nervous, afraid of making mistakes, or worried about being judged, then even the smartest student with the biggest vocabulary will struggle to speak. On the other hand, I've seen learners with very simple English limited words, broken grammar, but they speak with courage. They jump into conversations, they laugh at their mistakes, and guess what? People actually enjoy talking to them. They sound more fluent even though their English isn't perfect. Why? Because their confidence shines through. I remember a student I had years ago, a young man who wanted to improve his English because he was working in an international company. His grammar was okay. His vocabulary was fine, but every time we practiced speaking, he was quiet. He avoided eye contact. He would wait until the last possible second before answering. One day I asked him, "Do you know what your biggest problem is?" He thought I was going to say grammar, or maybe pronunciation. But I told him, it's your confidence. You already know enough English to have a conversation. The problem is, you don't trust yourself. That conversation changed everything for him. He started working not just on English, but on believing in himself. He began practicing in small, low-pressure situations, like ordering food or asking for directions. He made tiny mistakes, laughed at them, and moved on. Slowly, his confidence grew, and suddenly his English didn't just improve, it came alive. People understood him better, not because his grammar was perfect, but because he spoke with energy and belief. Now, let's think about this connection more deeply. Imagine confidence as a bridge. On one side of the bridge is all the English knowledge you already have, your vocabulary, your grammar, your listening practice, all the studying you've done. On the other side of the bridge is real communication, talking with people, making friends, giving presentations, telling stories. Without confidence, that bridge is broken. You're stuck with all this knowledge in your head, but it never reaches the other side. Confidence repairs that bridge. It carries your knowledge from your brain into your voice. And here's something funny. Confidence doesn't always come after you learn English. A lot of people think, I'll speak confidently when I'm fluent. But that's not how it works. It's actually the other way around. You become fluent by speaking confidently now, even while making mistakes. Mistakes aren't signs of failure, they're signs of progress. Every mistake you make in English is proof that you're using the language, stretching it, testing it, and learning from it. Confidence allows you to make those mistakes proudly instead of hiding from them. Let me tell you a story about myself. Years ago, when I was learning another language, I was terrified of speaking. I thought people would laugh at me, so I stayed quiet, even though I had studied for months. Then one day, I was in a small shop, and I had no choice but to ask for what I wanted in that language. My voice trembled, my grammar was a mess, and I'm sure the shopkeeper didn't understand half of what I said. But you know what? He smiled. He didn't laugh. He actually helped me find the words. That moment was powerful. I realized that people don't expect perfection, they appreciate effort. From then on, I spoke with more courage. My language skills didn't just improve, they skyrocketed. Why? Because my confidence unlocked everything I had already learned. I want you to picture this. You're sitting in a group of English speakers. A question comes to you. Your heart races. You're thinking, what if I make a mistake? What if they don't understand me? What if I embarrass myself? That's the fear that kills confidence. But what if, instead, you thought, I'm learning. Mistakes are normal. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to communicate. Suddenly, the pressure melts away. You open your mouth, you say your sentence. Maybe you make a mistake, but you survive. And that survival, that courage builds your confidence. And here's the magic: confidence is contagious. When you speak with confidence, even if your English is simple, people respond positively. They smile, they nod, they encourage you. That positive reaction feeds your confidence even more, and the cycle continues. Little by little, your English flows more naturally, and before you know it, you're not just a learner, you're a speaker. I know some of you might be thinking, but Jacob, what if I'm just naturally shy? What if confidence doesn't come easily to me? Let me tell you, confidence is not a personality trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. You don't need to be loud or extroverted. You just need to practice stepping out of your comfort zone in small ways. Speak to yourself in English. Record your voice. Join conversations online. Practice with friends who support you. Every tiny step builds your confidence muscle. Think about a child learning to walk. Do they fall? Yes, hundreds of times. Do they stop trying because of those falls? No. They laugh, they cry, they get up again, and slowly they walk. That's exactly how you should approach English. Every mistake is just a stumble, not the end of the journey. Confidence means saying, it's okay. I'll try again. Let me share another student story. I once taught a woman who dreamed of moving abroad. She studied English for years but avoided speaking. She said, I'll start speaking when my English is perfect. But years passed and perfection never came. Finally, she realized that waiting was the real problem. She began speaking immediately, even though her English was broken. Within months, her progress doubled, tripled even, because she wasn't holding herself back anymore. Confidence didn't come from perfection, it came from action. And maybe that's the real secret link. English speaking doesn't build confidence later. Confidence builds English speaking now. The two feed each other. The more you speak, the more confident you get. The more confident you get, the more you speak. It's a loop, a beautiful, powerful loop. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how different your English feels when you're with friends compared to when you're in a classroom or speaking to a stranger. With friends, you relax. You laugh, you use simple words, maybe even mix in your native language, and everything feels natural. But in a classroom, suddenly it's like a spotlight is shining on you. You hesitate, you overthink, and your English feels heavier. What changed? Not your vocabulary, not your grammar, it was your confidence. The moment you feel safe, your English flows. The moment you feel judged, it freezes. This tells us something very important. Your English is not trapped in your brain, it's trapped behind your fear. And the key to unlocking it is building an environment where confidence can grow. That's why I often tell learners, don't just study English, play with English. Sing songs, tell silly stories, try tongue twisters, act out little scenes. When you take the pressure away, your brain relaxes and your confidence has room to breathe. I remember a student who struggled terribly with speaking. In class, he was always silent. But one day, during a group activity, he had to play the role of a funny character in a short play. At first, he was nervous. But then, as he acted out the role, something magical happened. He forgot about grammar, forgot about mistakes, and just had fun. He laughed, the class laughed, and his words flowed in a way I had never seen before. Afterward, I asked him how he felt, and he said, "For the first time, I wasn't thinking about English. I was just being myself." That's what confidence does. It lets you stop being a student of English and start being a person who uses English. Let's talk about mistakes for a moment, because this is where so many learners lose their confidence. Mistakes feel embarrassing. They make you feel small, like everyone is judging you. But here's the truth. Most people don't care about your mistakes. They care about your message. Think about it. If a foreigner speaks to you in your language and makes a mistake, do you laugh at them? No. You usually feel impressed, right? You admire their effort. It's the same with English speakers. They don't expect you to be perfect. They just appreciate that you're trying. One time, I was traveling, and I met a man who barely spoke English. His grammar was broken, and sometimes I had to guess what he meant. But you know what? He was so confident, so eager to share his stories, that within minutes I felt connected to him. His English wasn't perfect, but his confidence made him unforgettable. That's when it hit me again. Confidence is what makes communication powerful. Language is the tool, but confidence is the driver. And let me tell you another interesting thing. Confidence is not always about speaking loudly or quickly. Some of the most confident English speakers I know actually speak slowly, calmly, even with pauses. Their confidence shows in their willingness to be clear, not in their speed. So if you ever feel like you're not fast enough, remember, speed doesn't equal confidence. Presence does. The ability to speak without fear, that's true confidence. Now, think about this scenario. You're in a meeting, and someone asks for your opinion. You freeze. Your brain is screaming with words, but your mouth refuses to open. Afterward, you feel frustrated, maybe even ashamed. But here's what I want you to realize. That moment wasn't about English, it was about confidence. Your English knowledge is already inside you. What's missing is the belief that your voice deserves to be heard. And once you practice speaking up, even in small ways, you start to break that fear. One trick I often recommend to learners is what I call confidence warm-ups. Before you go into a situation where you need to speak English, take a few minutes to warm up. Say a few sentences out loud. Read a short passage. Tell yourself something encouraging like, I can do this. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be clear. These little rituals may seem simple, but they prepare your brain and body to face the moment with more confidence. And here's another thing: you don't have to be confident all the time. No one is. Even native speakers lose confidence sometimes. I've seen people born and raised in English-speaking countries get nervous before giving a speech or speaking to strangers. Confidence isn't about never being nervous. It's about doing it anyway. It's about taking that shaky voice, that racing heart, and saying, all right, let's go. I once had a student who told me, Jacob, I'm always waiting to feel ready. I think if I study more, one day I'll wake up and feel confident. And I had to tell her the truth. You don't wait for confidence. You create it. You create it by showing up, by speaking even when you don't feel ready, by proving to yourself that you survived. Every time you speak English, you're not just practicing language, you're training confidence. And here's where the link between confidence and English becomes almost magical. The moment you stop worrying about mistakes, your brain actually works better. Stress shuts down your memory, but confidence opens it up. When you relax, words come more easily. Ideas flow. Your grammar, your vocabulary, your pronunciation, all of it improves naturally because your brain is no longer locked in fear. That's why confident speakers often sound more fluent, even if they know less English than others. Their confidence sets their knowledge free. So let me ask you, what's holding you back right now? Is it the fear of being laughed at? The fear of not finding the right words? The fear of people judging your accent? Whatever it is, I want you to imagine putting that fear in a little box. Close the box. Put it on a shelf. And tell yourself, I'll deal with you later. Right now, I'm going to speak. Confidence is not about removing fear completely. It's about moving forward in spite of it. Let me tell you something I've noticed after teaching hundreds of English learners. The ones who make the fastest progress are not the ones who spend the most hours studying grammar books. They're not even the ones with the biggest vocabulary. The fastest learners are the ones who speak without overthinking. They jump in. They risk mistakes. They're not fearless, but they act as if they are. That's confidence in action. I remember one young woman I taught who always volunteered to answer, even when she wasn't sure her answer was correct. At first, she made a lot of mistakes, but something interesting happened because she was speaking more often than the others. She was practicing more in real time, and because she was practicing more, she improved faster. Within months, she was speaking more naturally than students who had studied for years but kept quiet. Confidence gave her a shortcut to fluency. Now, let's pause and think about this in your own life. When you stay silent, when you keep waiting for the perfect sentence before speaking, what are you really doing? You're delaying your growth. You're telling your brain, not yet, not ready. And your brain listens. But when you speak, even if it's broken, you're sending your brain a completely different message. I'm ready now. Let's go. And your brain adapts. Confidence is like flipping a switch inside you. There's a story I love about Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. People say he failed thousands of times before he succeeded. But when someone asked him about those failures, he said, "I didn't fail. I just found thousands of ways that didn't work." That's confidence. And it's the same with English. Every time you make a mistake, you're not failing. You're finding one way not to say something, and now you're closer to the right way. I want you to picture a baby learning to talk. Do babies care about grammar rules? Do they worry about pronunciation? No, they babble, they mispronounce words, they invent sounds. And yet, everyone claps and encourages them. Why? Because effort matters more than perfection. If babies waited until they could speak perfectly, no child would ever speak. But they speak anyway, and with practice, they get better. That's the confidence we need to bring back into our adult learning. Here's a little exercise I sometimes give to my students. I tell them, go out today and make 5 mistakes in English on purpose. Yes, on purpose. Ask for directions and mess up your sentence. Order something at a restaurant with the wrong tense. Tell a story and use the wrong word. Why? Because when you make mistakes on purpose, you start to realize that nothing terrible happens. People don't laugh at you. The world doesn't end. In fact, most people help you, and sometimes you even laugh together. This exercise removes the fear of mistakes and builds your confidence muscle. Now, let's go deeper. Have you ever noticed how confidence changes not just your words, but your whole body? Confident people stand taller, look others in the eye, and speak with clearer voices. When you shrink, when you look down, when you whisper, your brain believes you're weak. But when you act confident, even if you don't feel it, your brain starts to believe it. This is called fake it till you make it. If you act confident long enough, soon you become confident. One of my students used to slouch in his chair, avoiding eye contact. I encouraged him to sit up straight, speak a little louder, and look at me while speaking. At first, he said, "But Jacob, that feels fake." And I told him, "It's not fake, it's practice. You're training your body and brain to work together." Within weeks, his speaking improved. Not because his vocabulary grew overnight, but because his posture and voice told his brain, "I can do this." Think of your favorite actor or public speaker. Do they stumble sometimes? Do they make mistakes? Of course. But what makes them powerful is their presence, the confidence they carry in their voice and body. You don't remember their small mistakes. You remember how they made you feel. That's the same effect you can create when speaking English. People won't remember every grammar error. They'll remember your energy, your willingness, your connection. Let me give you another story. I once attended a seminar where the speaker was clearly not a native English speaker. His accent was strong. His grammar wasn't perfect, but his confidence was unstoppable. He told stories with passion. He used his hands to explain ideas. He looked people in the eyes, and the audience loved him. By the end of his talk, people were lining up to shake his hand. No one cared about his mistakes. They cared about his message. That's the power of confidence. It makes people focus on what matters. And here's something very important. Confidence grows when you collect small wins. Don't wait for a big moment, like giving a speech or passing an exam. Start with small victories. Say hello to a stranger. Ask a shopkeeper a simple question. Join an online English group and write a short comment. Every small success adds a brick to your wall of confidence. One day, you'll look back and realize you've built something strong and unshakable. I know some of you listening right now feel like you've been studying English for years but still struggle to speak. You might even feel embarrassed about it. But I want you to understand something. There's nothing wrong with your brain. You're not bad at languages. What's happening is that your confidence has been sitting in the shadows, waiting for you to invite it into the light. And the moment you do, your English will start to grow faster than ever. So here's a thought experiment. Imagine two learners. One knows 10,000 English words but never speaks. The other knows only 500 words but speaks them every day with confidence. Who do you think will sound more fluent after a year? Exactly the second one. Confidence multiplies whatever knowledge you already have. It's the difference between silence and connection. And let's not forget, confidence in English doesn't just help with speaking. It helps with listening, too. When you're nervous, your brain shuts down and you miss words. But when you're confident, you relax, and suddenly you understand more than you thought. Confidence is like a lens that clears up the picture. Let's do something together right now. Wherever you are, maybe you're walking, maybe you're sitting at home, maybe you're listening on your way to work. I want you to try this. Say out loud, right now. My English doesn't need to be perfect. My English just needs to be alive. Say it once. Say it again. Feel how different that sounds compared to the pressure of must be perfect. That little shift in mindset, that's confidence in action. Now imagine you're at a party. You see a group of people speaking English, laughing, telling stories. You feel the fear creeping in. Should I join? What if I can't keep up? Confidence is the moment you say, I'll try anyway. You walk over, you smile, you say, Hi, can I join you? Maybe your grammar isn't perfect. Maybe you forget a word. But suddenly, you're part of the group. That's the moment where confidence turns into connection. I've seen this countless times with my students. One man I taught, let's call him Amir, moved to a new country and was too scared to speak English outside the classroom. He spent months hiding behind his phone, translating everything, avoiding conversations. But one day, he forced himself to ask a simple question at a bus stop. Just one sentence. Excuse me, does this bus go to the city center? The woman answered kindly, and that small interaction gave him a spark of courage. From then on, he made it his mission to ask one question every day. After 6 months, he was holding conversations he never thought possible. Not because his grammar book suddenly taught him magic, but because his confidence carried him forward step by step. Confidence doesn't mean being fearless. Confidence means being willing. Willing to step into discomfort. Willing to stumble. Willing to look a little silly. That willingness creates practice, and practice creates progress. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I was in a country where I barely knew the local language. One evening, I was invited to a family dinner. Everyone was speaking quickly, laughing, telling jokes. I sat there silently for the first half hour, terrified of embarrassing myself. But then I thought, what's the point of being here if I don't try? So I jumped in. I told a story in broken sentences. They laughed not at me, but with me. They appreciated the effort. And suddenly I felt like part of the family. That night, I didn't speak perfectly, but I connected, and that connection mattered more than correctness. Here's something I want you to imagine. You're climbing a mountain. On your back, you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with dictionaries, grammar rules, vocabulary lists. That backpack is your knowledge, but the mountain is communication. Without confidence, you never take the first step. You just sit there with all your knowledge weighing you down. With confidence, you say, "All right, let's go." And you start climbing. You may stumble, you may get tired, but step by step, you reach the top. Confidence is what gets you moving. And do you know what's amazing? The more you climb, the lighter that backpack feels. Because every time you use a word in real life, it stops being just knowledge and becomes part of your natural speech. Confidence is what transforms heavy study into living skill. Now, let's try something together again. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine your future self 1 year from now. Picture yourself speaking English freely, without hesitation. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're at work, maybe you're meeting new friends. See the smiles on people's faces. Hear your own voice, calm and confident. That future self is not a dream. That future self is you built by the small acts of courage you take today. You see, confidence doesn't grow overnight. It grows through repetition, through tiny victories, through choosing action over silence. Every time you open your mouth, you're feeding the cycle of confidence. And every time you stay silent, you're feeding the cycle of fear. Which cycle do you want to grow? I had another student, Maria, who told me I feel like two different people. In my native language, I'm funny, I'm outgoing. But in English, I feel shy and boring. And I told her, that's not because of your English, it's because of your confidence. Your real personality is still inside you. English is just the door. Confidence is the key. Slowly, as she practiced, laughed at her mistakes, and stopped comparing herself to others, her true personality started to shine through in English. One day she told me a joke in English and had the whole class laughing. That was the moment she realized she could be fully herself in English too. Confidence is not about becoming someone else. It's about allowing your true self to come out, even in another language. Now let's think about accents. So many learners lose confidence because of their accent. They think, I don't sound like a native speaker, so my English is bad. But let me tell you this, your accent is not your weakness. It's your story. It's proof that you're brave enough to speak a second language. Nobody hears your accent and thinks you're less intelligent. They hear your accent and think, whoa, this person speaks more than one language. Confidence is accepting your accent as part of your identity, not something to hide. Let me ask you, have you ever met someone with a strong accent in your own language? Did it bother you? Or did you just focus on what they were saying? Exactly. It's the same with English. Your accent doesn't stop communication. Your fear does. So, here's the challenge I want you to carry with you. The next time you speak English, instead of asking yourself, was that perfect? Ask yourself, was I brave? Because bravery, not perfection, is what builds confidence. Here's something interesting I've learned. Over the years, confidence grows faster when you share your voice with others, not just yourself. Think about it when you practice English alone. You're safe. No one is listening. No one is judging. But when you speak in front of someone else, even one person, your heart beats faster. That's the moment when real confidence is built. Confidence is a muscle, and you can only strengthen it by putting weight on it. The weight, in this case, is other people's ears. I once had a student, Ravi, who practiced English every night in his room. He was great when he spoke to himself, but in public he froze. One day I told him, "You need to take your English out of your room and into the world." He started small, ordering coffee in English, even though the waiter spoke his native language. The first time, his hands shook. The second time, he stumbled. By the fifth time, he was smiling while speaking. And after a few weeks, he didn't think twice. That's how confidence is built, not by waiting, but by stepping forward again and again. Let's try a little experiment right now. If you're listening at home, I want you to say your name out loud, followed by, "I am confident when I speak English." Say it once. Now say it again, but louder. Now say it one more time, but with a smile on your face. Did you notice the difference? That's the power of combining your voice, your body, and your belief. Speaking confidently is not just about words, it's about energy. Now, let's talk about the inner critic. You know that little voice in your head that says, "Don't speak. You'll embarrass yourself." Or, "You're not ready yet." That inner critic is the biggest thief of confidence. But here's a secret: you don't have to listen to it. You can talk back. When that voice says, "What if I make a mistake?" you can answer, "So what? I'll learn." When it says, "They might laugh at me," you can reply, "Then I'll laugh too." Confidence grows when you change your inner conversation. I want to share the story of a woman I met at an international conference. She was from Brazil, and she told me she had avoided speaking English for years because of fear. But at this conference, she had no choice. She had to present in English. Her slides were ready, but the night before, she told me, "I can't do this." I looked at her and said, "Confidence is not about being ready. It's about showing up." The next day she gave her talk. Was it perfect? No. But she did it. And afterward, she told me that was the scariest and most liberating moment of my life. That's what confidence does. It liberates you. Now, here's something I want you to practice regularly: storytelling. Tell stories in English, even short ones. Why? Because stories are natural. They take the focus away from grammar and place it on meaning. When you tell a story, people listen to the journey, not the mistakes. Confidence grows when you feel people connecting to your story. Let me show you how simple it can be. Right now, think of a funny or interesting memory from your life. Maybe your first day at school. Maybe a travel experience. Maybe a cooking disaster in the kitchen. Start telling that story in English, even if you're alone. Don't worry about mistakes. Just let the words flow. That practice over and over builds the habit of speaking without fear. And every time you tell it, it becomes smoother. Confidence loves repetition. Another student of mine, Chen, used this technique. Every evening, he would tell his wife one story in English about his day. At first, it was short and awkward. But after a few weeks, his stories got longer, richer, more expressive. His confidence grew because he was sharing, not performing. That's a big difference. Speaking English isn't a test, it's a conversation. Let's also talk about silence. A lot of learners panic when they forget a word. They freeze, they blush, they want to disappear. But here's the secret: silence is okay. Even native speakers pause. They say, you know. Confidence means being comfortable with silence. Instead of seeing it as failure, you can fill those pauses with simple phrases like, "Let me think," or "How do you say?" That way, you stay in the conversation instead of running away from it. Confidence is also about perspective. If you believe English is a mountain you'll never climb, you'll always feel small. But if you see English as a road, you're walking step by step, you realize you're already moving forward. Every word you speak is progress. Every conversation is a victory. Confidence is choosing to notice your progress instead of comparing yourself to others. I'll share another story. A man once told me, "I'll never be fluent like a native speaker, so why bother?" And I said, "Fluency is not about being native. It's about being you in English." He thought about that for a while, and later he said, "So my goal is not to be perfect. My goal is to be understood." Exactly. And once he stopped chasing perfection, his confidence grew. Now, let's take a deep breath together. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. As you breathe out, say quietly to yourself, "I have the right to speak English," because you do. English is not owned by one group of people. It's a global language shared by millions of learners just like you. Your voice matters in that global conversation. Confidence is the permission you give yourself to join it. So if there's one thing I want you to remember from everything we've talked about today, it's this: English fluency doesn't live only in your grammar books or your vocabulary lists. It lives in your confidence. It lives in the way you allow yourself to speak even when you're not perfect. It lives in the moments when you choose connection over silence, courage over fear. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you build. And every time you speak, even if you make a mistake, you're adding another brick to that foundation. Day by day, word by word, you're creating a version of yourself who doesn't just know English, but actually lives in it. So the secret link between confidence and English speaking. It's simple: confidence unlocks everything you already know. Confidence makes your English alive. And the more you speak with confidence, the more fluent, natural, and truly yourself you'll become. And maybe the next time you open your mouth to speak English, you'll hear that little voice of doubt, but you'll also hear this one: be brave. Speak anyway. I've got this, because you do.